As he said, Grady said, I'm fairly new. I'm also fairly new to some of this technology. I'm not trying to engineer by background, but this has been transformative. So I'll be talking some of my experiences with practical use of AI, which is about. So I'll be talking about computer design and manufacturing and how AI can benefit that and how it's relevant to now. So this is CAD CAM. Computer design and manufacturing is a way to transform a vision for what you want to do into a product. So you sit down at a computer, pick on a computer keyboard, and you produce a file. As Grady said, you can send it to a 3D printer in your house, or you can send it somewhere else. And it's essentially a form of contract manufacturing. You can send a file for almost anything to almost anywhere and get someone to bid on it. And that's a computer design file, and that's a CNC machine. And this is kind of the way the world is. The dodos are gone, the monkey whips are gone, and the bottom line is, fortunately, most of us are not working for a living anymore. In one sense, thank goodness. But for businesses, it's either adopt or die. So these are some example of computer numeric control machines. By the way, anyone wants my slides, I just see me afterwards and I can share them. I actually have a link on here, but I can share my slides and all the chats, because I did all this stuff with ChatGPT. I can actually share, you can see my work, actually. So for example, that's an example of a computer which is more powerful than computers of not that long ago. For $28, you get a very powerful computer which does lots of stuff. That's a 3D printer, that's one in my house. For $260, I get a self-delivering, very nice printer. Works out very nicely. Now, those are other machines. This is an example of what Grady was talking about. This is a water jet cutter, which will cut wood, plastic, stone, anything. Now, it's a machine that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. What they want to do is they don't want to screw up the CAD stuff. It's a business which has an underutilized machine. They're happy to have you send a file along with the charge card and then give you back a product. There's lots of businesses like around here. So for example, we in the computer club create a file sitting in their shorts in an office, and you send them a file by email or to a portal, and they will honestly give you back a product. I've been there and done that. It's anything. You can have it made in Pflugerville, Round Rock, or South Dakota, or anywhere. There's lots to be able to do. That's an example of a mid-price thing. That's a computerized sewing machine, which happens to be one of our neighbors. She bought that thing for $10,000. It's fundamentally a computerized sewing machine. All these things are computerized widgets. That is a computer. All these other things are peripheral devices. That is a dye sublimation printer. We were more with the Pflugerville Library. They had a dye sublimate. They were producing cups and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. That happens to cost $430, which is not a whole lot for what you get. It's amazing. So, it's just amazing what can be done. And fundamentally, the concept of all these things is the same. A human has a concept, they create a design, they send a file off to somewhere, and a little while later they get a product. So this is for a SIG, which of course what I'm proposing is computer design assisted by AI. So one of the aspects of that is, because I touched base with the president of the computer club, and even the person in charge of the CA, is space is a premium in Sun City. Getting a meeting room or setting up equipment is a giant pain in the neck. So what you can do is separate the CAD side from the CAM side. So what you do is, by separating that, is no equipment is required. You need a person who is motivated with some skill. He sits down, designs a file, and he sends it off somewhere. The somewhere could be a 3D printer in your same place, or it could be anywhere. So from the standpoint of the computer club, it requires no equipment. So that's the beauty about that. You end up with results. And what you're doing is utilizing other people's stuff. So you send off a file or a production machine. Like for example, I have a 3D printer in my house. Lots of Sun City residents have various 3D printers. The problem is they're not simple to use necessarily. That's collaboration is good. and you send the files, like this happens to be this business, they have a water jet cutter, which will cut anything which is 5 feet by 10 feet or smaller. They'll cut stone, plastic, wood, foam, anything. There's a plasma cutter, which will cut 2-inch plate steel, and you can never do that, or anything you want. Send them a file, and away you go. Now, one of the things is they're self-taught CAD CAM and CNC. That's the way I do it. It's not the right way to do it. Because I've done this kind of stuff a bit, but when you learn it, like when I use my 3D printer, you make a whole series of mistakes. In essence, if we had kind of a club we could help each other, which is what this group is all about, is helping each other about. And let's not reinvent the wheel and not redo the same mistakes. That's what a group like this is all about. So this will work, but it's not the right way to do it. So if we had this kind of thing, then we could say, okay, I want to use a 3D printer, I want to use a CNC plasma cutter, I want to do this. We'd also establish relationships with businesses. Because like that place in Pflugerville, there's also one in 5 miles from here. And we want to have a relationship with you. And Frank will go to the lowest bidder. If you want to get a thing made out of metal, okay, come A will charge you X, come B will charge you Y. From their standpoint, it's material. And so it's a good deal. So this is an example of a real-world project. We're in the process of doing it. And I meet people at the Red Poppy Railroad. It's an amazing place. One of the projects we're going to do there is we're going to do railroad crossing gates. For example, you see the thing, the train comes up, the underbridge lights flash, and that stuff. I'm making one as part of a technology group within the Radio Control Modelers Club. So it's going to do that. So what I did, I fed all my requirements into ChatGPT. And it's astounding how quick it came back with results. It's this whole series of chats. And this is actually a link to my conversations on ChatGPT. And I started with a very simple query and went through and through and through. It produced software for the Arduino controller and 3D printer files. So it's just astounding what it can do. Now here's one of the things to consider too, is most of the clubs in Sun City are great. And they're made for people like you and me, but they're not made for people with significant physical disabilities. And whether it's the dance club, or the woodworkers club, or the creative plant China club, they're made for people who have these, and these. And not everyone does. So the idea in principle, a person with significant physical handicaps could create products of almost any type. As long as you can operate a computer somehow, some way, mouse stick, voice recognition, thought waves, God knows what. As long as he's motivated and has a wonderful brain, he can create almost anything. So that's the idea, is you send off the files to somewhere else, and then besides sending them locally, there's various businesses who want to appeal to this thing. Now this could be a grant, which is one of my things. I'm envisioning doing a makerspace, and part of the logic will be based upon this. Because there's a fair number of people in Sun City and elsewhere who are kind of excluded from society. We're fortunate, we're not in that position, but someday, perhaps we'll be in that position, and in this case, a person who could operate a computer could do anything. So, the example is a blind or quadriplegic person could create a plate, which is 10 feet by 4 feet, could also do that or anything. As long as he has a little bit of brains and willing to pay for it, they're good to go. These are some examples of machines which happen to be in Sun City. The thing on the left is a laser, CNC laser. It's probably like a $10,000, $20,000 machine. The thing on the right is a CNC router. A laser cuts out with lasers, and you've probably seen examples of that. The thing on the right is a router. That's also a bunch of money too. And it's there to be in the woodworker shop when we are. You have to take the other classes, and you might not be interested in using lathes, use these. So the idea is to be synergistic with other clubs in Sun City, and we can do that. we're kind of crossing several boundaries here. Now, this is a specific project we had in mind, which is that railroad crossing gate. And it's very much like, and actually, I fed into ChatGPT, it produced a model. Say, I want to make an honest to God real one. They gave me back the model for making an honest to God real railroad gate. Bigger servos, bigger motors, and bigger arms. It actually came back with real results. So this is an example of some of the products of ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I actually upgraded to $20 a month because they're doing so much stuff on it. I did try the other one, didn't produce as good results. But there's an example. Tell me what you're doing. This is a code, software code, ready to run on that Arduino software. And all those gobbledygook, you probably understand this stuff. It's a gobbledygook, but you feed it into that Arduino with that computer, and it runs. It processes the inputs. For example, one of the requirements is there's a magnet going to be on the train. The train pulls up within 5 feet of the crossing. It detects a train, it sends a signal by a magnet on the train to the controller. The arm goes down, the lights flash, the siren goes boom, 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 and after some period of time it tries on, and everything's reversed. So it's not rocket science, but it produced all that code to do that stuff. I also produced all the 3D printer files to make this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do this at the Red Poppy Road before too long, and a railroad crossing gate. So this is what I actually produced from a 3D printer, so we're going to install that. One of the things with AI, you see little clause, we make mistakes, because I make some amusing mistakes with this thing. For example, one of the things I said, make it more like, this is an arm, the crossing arm goes down, and this, and I said, please make them integrate together. It put the crossing arm horizontal on the top, and it made the arm latched horizontal. So with AI, it's very smart, and also pretty dumb. There will be mistakes in AI, but you can catch them and correct them. But it was amazing to me how good it was. It turned me into a real believer. I'm right now engaging and looking for other projects, and we're going to do these at the radio control model talk, and I'm doing these anyways. For example, I posed a question to ChatGPT: make a security camera which recognizes intruders and discerns between mice, blowing leaves, and all that stuff. So the idea is you have a camera hooked up to this thing here. This is an AI processor and a computer, and it actually processes the images and says, okay, there's an intruder or this, and send a text or an email or whatever it is. So in the case of Red Poppy Railroad, for example, is there just a leaf going around as a raccoon, or is it likely someone doing things? I fed that thing into here and came up with results. That was $60. It's astounding. And how good it'll work remains to be seen. Again, with AI, it'll probably be pretty good, but not perfect. But we actually ran that code, and it worked right up the first try on that other thing. So it's amazing. So it produced all this code. It gave me a parts list. What I did is for the Red Poppy Railroad project, I said, give me a parts list for everything. I want to get everything from Amazon. And it gave me a parts list of building materials, and it says it's going to cost you $25. I filled up my Amazon work, and it's done. The whole thing is that Red Poppy Railroad project was $100. Controller and extra parts. So it's just amazing. It's amazing what results it produced. Makerspaces, we don't have any in Sun City. We don't have any in Georgetown. A makerspace is kind of up there. It's a whole bunch of tools that you have. Some libraries have them. Again, my slides are available. If you see me afterwards, I'll send you a link to this. But this is a makerspace, and that is some of us visiting that one there. This is another vision of that. And makerspace, they have 3D printers, they have dye sublimation things, make cups, t-shirts. They have a computerized sewing machine, they have a thing for kids, they have a thing for adults. The interesting thing about a makerspace is most of Pleasant Sun City cater to a particular expertise. you go to Woodwork's office, it's a bunch of geniuses at woodwork with very skilled. The makerspace is kind of a catch-all thing. So I'm currently lobbying to get one here. And the amount of space for this thing, it would fit in half this room. So that's, we'll see how this goes. But I think it would appeal to a whole bunch of people, because most closet subsidies are kind of niches. So the idea is you have certain things in there, like, I won't go while explaining what these things are, but there's nice sewing machines and they have little kits you can check out. And then for serious stuff, you send the files elsewhere. Let's say you want to 3D print this, that, that thing. Now you want to make a serious thing, like a 2-inch plate steel, you send it off to a company, and away you go. But you learn the principles in this, because it's fundamentally different from printing out a 3D toy and making something out of plate steel or wood or whatever. So this happens to be a lab. And some of us did a visit to there and to there, and it's kind of eye-opening to see what they do. I think that's it. That's it. So, yes.
So it's at the library in Pflugerville. Is there only one library in Pflugerville?
Yes. Oh yeah, you can find it. Now, the issue in Pflugerville is we don't live in Pflugerville. But, as it turns out, and the Georgetown Library is a lovely building, doesn't have one in Franklin. Round Rock has one, it's also not very good. Pflugerville is great, it has a lady in there who's a genius. And the neat thing about that lady is, she learned it all on her own. Because how do you learn to use all this stuff? And people in this room are probably pretty savvy about figuring out your own. And there's a YouTube for everything. I'm going to find a YouTube on Brain so we can save some money that way. But she taught it all on her own. So the thing for makerspace, you need a space, which is not very large. That room is probably smaller than this room. You need some stuff. And the stuff is not very expensive. Like the most expensive thing in that thing was a laser, was probably $2,000. The stuff is not very expensive. You just have to say, we want to sign up and do this thing. And away you go. So anyhow, that's it all. Well, it's a kind of an opportunity to get exposed to different things. Again, if you go here, all the clubs are oriented to specific things, ready to play in China and all that stuff. This is the catch-all club. Any other questions? Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Norm.
Many of you have seen this brochure. Just a reminder, September 26th at the retreat. I don't think you have to register.